Hi everyone, this is Kelly, and we are here to take a look at Compendium of Witches Oracle, and I'm really excited to be doing so. This deck has been on the top of my wish list for a while now. A friend of mine has this deck, and I'll check in with her now and again and be like, were you still thinking about that deck? I've had it in my cart bunch of times where I put it in the cart, almost pulled the trigger. The only reason that I haven't is that it is in the UK. It ships from the UK, and it's really expensive shipping right now, as we all know, the world over. But more importantly, it's expensive, and a lot of things have gone missing. I have definitely had issues with shipping, and it makes me definitely gun shy to pull the trigger on international decks because of that, as I'm sure a lot of people feel the same. But yesterday I went to the post office and this deck was here in my post office box. And truthfully, I usually know if something's coming from my post office. I knew it wasn't from the creator because creators always contact me first to do like reviews of their decks. And I didn't see anything that would reference who it was from. And so I was just kind of like, that's interesting. Like, I have no clue who this was from, but I was super stoked about it, obviously, because it was a top list deck for me. But then when I sat down to do the walkthrough, and I covered this up because this is actually a code from the creator, and obviously I don't want to use that code because it's for if you purchase something, so that's why that's covered up. But on the back of it, when I was doing the walkthrough, and I'm not going to show it because that person may not want their name on the internets. But when I just happened to flip this card over, and it had pasted on there a note from who had sent it. And so she knows who she is. Thank you very much. It was a pleasant surprise after a week of being very, very sick. I was excited because it was unexpected, and again, it was my top wish list. So super exciting. So let's take a look at this deck together. It was packaged really nice. It was I ripped it open. It was nice. Had a sticker on it. It was great. And you can see that the deck and the box come separately. Now, I do know a bit about this deck simply because I have been watching it for a while, and it's been on my wish list. I've looked through it many times. A friend of mine, Heather, who is on Instagram, she in Embrace the Magical, she was showing some of these cards, and I was like, oh, that's really, like, it kind of amped it up for me even more. That was really showing up in powerful ways. So super excited about it. But this was originally an art book. So the artist and the creator of this deck had created art pieces based on some of her own studies and on some anthropological work I saw somewhere that she was doing. I'm not sure all of what she was doing, but she was collecting some different stories and folk tales and things like that, and then she created this art book. And so once that was completed, she realized that she had, in this case of this, I don't know how many's in the book, but in this deck there are 30 witches that are put in here, and they are all except for one. I have gone through the guidebook because she gave some information about where each of the witches from, and I was just curious if these were real people. So I'd gone through all of them to find out where they were from, and so. And in here she notes where only one of them is an actual person, but they are all connected to specific places and times. And there's a couple cards in here that made this a must-have deck for me, which I'll show you when we get to it. But again, it was originally an art book, and then she ended up making it into this Oracle deck. And so it came with, her art is just stunning. As well, obviously we'll zoom in. I'll fix the light over there. Her art is absolutely gorgeous. She must have a Patreon as well. I'll have to take a look at that. But her artwork is gorgeous. Love stickers. Put that in my sticker pile. Love her business card is just gorgeous raised. Her name, I really don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm assuming this is Natasha. There's a line over the S, and I be honest with you, I don't know what that signifies, but my guess is probably Natasha Ilinsic, but I'm sure that's not how that's pronounced. So there you go. That is her name. It's obviously below. It was with her website. And so we'll just stick those pretty things up there. With the book, or with the deck, you get the, obviously the Oracle deck, and you get the Oracle book, which is a little bit larger. It doesn't fit in the box. I'm fine with that because you get a nice big image of the cards there. You know, obviously best case scenario, but this is coming from a large art book and then put into a small Oracle book so that you have something, even if you don't have the full art book. And so you know, it was just, this is just how it was produced, and I quite like this little book, so I'm not going to complain about it not being in the book, in the deck, in the box with a deck. The box is that gorgeous rose petal finish that we've all known and loved, originally on boxes and books. It's not on the book, it's just on the box, but is it the greatest on the cards? These cards are not this finish, because this finish is so gorgeous on things like boxes and books, but I have found on decks they do tend to be really sticky and not the best for riffle shufflers, but I love it. I love the feel of it, and this is just gorgeous. The tree's gorgeous, this is gorgeous, the little leaves branching through the Oracle is gorgeous, the spattering of the gilding is gorgeous. Like, it's just a beautiful box all around. It really just is one of those that sparks joy just to see the box. We'll come back to that in a second. We'll stick that up here for right now and take a look at the guidebook itself, although it sounds like somebody is starting to mow, so I'll probably be back shortly. Okay, let's try this again now that the lawn service is done here. So this is the little guidebook that you get, and it's beautiful. Like, everything is produced really beautifully. I love the accent colors. It's mostly this green and sort of a pale brown or a light sepia color that's really gorgeous, that you see as sort of so you have green text and this color text, and it's just pleasing. Some things are just pleasing, right? She has using this deck, she has a council spread, which I am definitely going to try, and then it goes right into the card. This is a bookmark. This is one of the cards that made me really want this deck. That's Hecate, but there's a couple others that made me want it even more. But I was excited to see this bookmark. Sometimes I'm not, super, like, it's like, okay, it's cool to get all these little bits and bobs, but I don't really do anything with them. But in that case, I was really excited to see that. So then for the guidebook itself, for each of the witches, and we're not going to flip through all of them, obviously, because you'll see the pictures before we go through the beautiful cards. But let's just take a look here. What we get is the title of the card. We get an image of the card. It's not full size of the card, but it's a large image of the card in color. We have keywords here: understanding, attention, focus, and immersion for the listener. And then let's go ahead and read this. You get two parts. You get sort of a general message of the card, and then you get a something about the actual witch that we're looking at. So she concentrates on the silence of the valley until she can hear the whispering voices hidden within. The creaking of the old tree speaks of its age, the rummaging of the boar of its hunger, the calm breathing of the water buffalo of its placidity. The listener represents our ability to not just hear, but to listen. The will to carefully observe grants us a deeper and more comprehensive understanding of the world and the people around us. Similarly, the courage to listen to our inner voices can shed light on the roots of our feelings and actions. And then there's about the witch section. Bone Weaver was a wise woman who lived in the hills north of the Narmada River in the 5th millennium BCE. She made her home in an area now known for the Bimbetka rock shelters, which preserve some of the earliest cave paintings, which we actually see here. Some of the images that I looked up, I'm assuming this is actually taken from those cave. I didn't sit there and compare them one to one, but it looked like it. Which preserves some of the earliest cave paintings known to mankind. She herself painted some of them and used them to teach the young people of her community. And this area that they're talking about is in India. So I went through and kind of wrote that down, checked each one of the places just out of curiosity. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting here as I went, it's not like exact. Some of them fluctuate, especially when we get into the later ones, but it starts from the oldest of the witches that are put in here, and it goes to the most recent. Not Hecate's not it kind of stands separate. But it goes into the 20th century at the end. Again, it's not, a perfect time clock, but it's pretty much progresses from oldest to most recent areas, and then goes across different areas. So that is how the book is set up. And again, it's really beautiful. I felt like it gave plenty enough information of knowing how to lean into these cards. Excuse me. And so that's what it gives on the witches. Now, this is a 2-part deck. So it's a 60 card deck. 30 of the cards are these Compendium of Witches, these different women across time and place. And so we have that. But then the other 30 cards are more like almost like a fortune telling style oracle deck. It reminds me of say the earth, or the little earth oracle that is I'll try to find it in a second and bring it out, but it's very earthy in nature, where you can see, and we're going to walk through these, but it is much more, these are the whispers. So she talks about the witches as being the voices, and this second part as being the whispers. And so I really love it because I love this style of deck. So you have a 30 card deck, this style, and then you have a 30 card deck of the witches. And she, in her description of how to use it, keeps those decks separately. Obviously, I'll be playing around with both keeping it separate and also mixing them together and just seeing. My first instinct would be to do the same, to pull a message from, this feels very much not at all saying in a copycat kind of way, but this feels very similar to the Weaver's Oracle, where we have these stories of these women from different times and different places. These are rooted in actual times and places where, while you don't get those specific details in the Weaver's Oracle, these really are rooted in place and rooted in time in a really beautiful way. But it has that same sort of energy. And with the Weaver's Oracle, I really don't pull more than one, although I will try this Council of 3, which I do like that idea as well. But so I can see keeping this separate. My guess is that's how I'll do it, and then pull extra cards for a further message from the secondary part of the card. But we'll see as we go. I'm just started playing with it. I obviously have read through the whole book last night and looked at each one of these places up, which was a lot of fun, and I recommend doing that. It was really interesting to look at all of these different tribes. Okay, who are these people? Oh, there's it says from Lithuania, but I wanted to see a little bit more about it. Was this battle really a battle? Yeah, it was a battle. I learned a little bit about the battle. So last night I had almost done this walkthrough last night, but when I started doing this, I just got sunk into this almost like a trip across time and across different places across the world. That was a really incredible experience that, you know, locks me in. And, you know, while looking at these different grandmother type energies, not all grandmothers, but that's how I think of them, you know, these wise women across all of these different times and places. I took like an internet trip through all of those times and places, and it just really makes me feel so connected to this deck, and I haven't even shuffled the deck once. So I really recommend doing that if you have this deck, or if you end up getting this deck. You know, take the time to Google all of these places. It's pretty easy in nowadays to pop in Google search, and I was able to find all of the references here, and it was quite powerful experience. So that's the guidebook. Whoops. Let's keep. She looks pretty cool up there. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the guidebook out though, because I have made some notes about, you know, different things that I found when Google searching them. So I'm gonna keep that open for myself. Put it over here for the moment. So again, I told you the box is gorgeous. It feels gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. It has this, I like this. I don't like boxes that don't have a tab in it to get, it can be very hard to get the boxes open. This doesn't have that big gouge, but it's got that incline, and it's really looks sharp, and it makes it so that you can open the box. Here you can see the backings, which are stunning. This artist is, in my opinion, absolutely phenomenal. The art's phenomenal. This art, you know, that goes into the little bits and bobs, like, again, even the word oracle just looks amazing. But this is probably one of my all-time favorite backs of a deck, and I'm sure I have many over all the decks I've looked at, but this is up there with an absolute top deck backing. The other thing that I was super stoked to see, which I didn't realize with all the times I'd stuck it in my cart, is that this is my all-time favorite cardstock, in that it is a linen, it's like a matte linen. I can't wait to shuffle it. I haven't gotten a chance to shuffle it, but I think it's going to shuffle like a dream. I have to take this to the craft store to find the perfect green. I am definitely going to, but none of the greens that I have, although they do look different, obviously, on cards. This one is probably what I'll be doing it in, because it looks different on the cardstock, obviously, than on the cap. But there's not an extra card to test it with. But I'm guessing this is going to be the one, which is $2.49 Tombow. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get any closer than that. So we'll take a look at that at the end. But because that's neither here nor there. But it is a beautiful matte feeling linen cardstock, and I think it is going to shuffle amazingly. Let us zoom way in here so that we can see. I guess we'll just leave that owl sitting up there in that blank space. Why not? Let's put the owl and Hecate. There we go. Why not utilize that space while we're sitting here? Okay. Can we get in a little bit? I know I'm kind of putzing around here trying to get it I'm just so excited about this deck. I want you guys to see it well. Okay, so here we have the listener. Let me grab the book here. As I already said, this is coming from the 5th millennium BCE, so a very, very, very long time ago in the caves of India, and it is absolutely stunning. She is the listener, not to just hear, but to listen, which I think is so powerful. But let me just, do some annoying things. Some people hate when I pick the cards up, but look at like her headdress, all of the detail there, the cord wrapping around her horns, the detail in her horns, the tattoos on her body. She has what I'm guessing might be a drum. I'm not sure. No, that's probably the paint. Yes, because her finger's in the paint that she would have done the cave paintings on. It's just her artwork is stunning. and it's a absolutely amazing card. This is part I love about walkthroughs because, again, I don't have the best of eyesight, and this is a nice size card, and the art is really well illuminated. But I get to see a lot of details by doing this that I don't see in person. So yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So that's the listener. The next card that we have is the Priestess. This is a Neolithic priestess who lived in the High Dinster, I'm not sure how you would say that with the D and the N, Valley during the 4th millennium BCE. She worshipped the Earth Mother. There is, in this area, in this valley, it was more like a canyon when again, who knows in the 4th millennium, right? But as of right now, it's more of a canyon that is filled with caves and grottos. And one of the things that I thought was interesting in my research is that there are waterfalls there called the Maiden's Tears. And this would be in what is present day Ukraine area. Super powerful. The keywords here are initiation, ascension, mastery, and power. Again, just... I'm really in love with the artwork. I love all of the like the Venus, what are those called? Venus, it's not Venus de Maya, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but those are sort of divine feminine statuettes that we find. I love the tattoo work. It's just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So next we have the Oracle. Now this one I also found to be quite interesting, and I'm actually looking forward to looking. What is that on her? I think those are bees. Yes, those are bees in a beehive or wasps or something, and I saw that. I think she talks about it. Let me see. Yeah, the bees led her through the mountains fragrant with thyme and wildflowers to an ample cave. This is Melissa, and her keyword, sorry, I froze here, 1 second. Okay, I am back here. So she does talk about the bees there. That's absolutely beautiful. This is Melissa. As I was saying, her keywords are intuition, instinct, feeling, and insight. She lived on Mount Parnassus in the 7th century BCE, and this was in Greece. This is an area that was sacred to Dionysus and Apollo, and this area was considered to be the home of the Muses, and there was this connection with nymphs here, and so that is why why the creator has obviously painted her here. The oracle neither utters nor hides its meaning, but shows it by signs. Here we have the Wind Rider. I had a very strong connection to this wise woman as well. This one was interesting because this was somebody who was, her name is Casa. She was born in 4th century BCE Attica, which was a Greek area, an area in modern Greece, and I think in ancient Greece as well, because she leaves Greece. She is kind of like, I'm not going to live the kind of life that a woman had to live in ancient Greece at that time, and she leaves Greece and moves to, connects to an area of kind of nomads in the Russian-Ukraine area, what is now Russia and Ukraine, with the Scythians. And there she became this wind rider and this warrior woman here that's quite beautiful. This kind of reminds me of like Mongolia with the eagles that they would use and still do, although it's a small number now that still do it. So really powerful of showing a wise woman who leaves the life that they were sort of destined to live by birth, and makes a different path for herself in a powerful way. The keywords are autonomy, authenticity, integrity, and untamedness. Here we have the Shapeshifter, which is gorgeous. Of course, this is not, of course, but to me it looks like it. But this is, cannot say her name. Here, Viduka Lemisunia lived in Gaul in the 1st century BCE. This would be in modern day France area, and she is a shapeshifter. Metamorphosis, adaptability, sensory expansion, and perspective. And again, we just have a little bit that's in this top thing, but it really is enough for you to feel like you're sinking in, and then you can then run with the story yourself. She leaves her sleeping body and lets the wolfskin grow on her new bones. As she runs through the forest, her shape changes. Glistening scales emerge under the shedding fur and then feathers. She spreads her wings and flies into the night sky, weightless, fearless, feral. And again, it's just one paragraph, but you really get under the skin of this person, and it just allows you then to take and run with the story and feel the story of this wise woman here. So really beautiful. I love all of the detail on the stone that we see and the vines creeping in. It's just a beautiful, again, really, oh, she's got a sickle at her. Oops, sorry camera, and sorry to you watching. She has a sickle where you could see where she might be going to harvest these plants in front of her. Here we have the scholar, and she is Cornelia, born in the 2nd century in the former Greek colony of Tarentum, but she spent her life in Rome. And so this crosses Greece and Rome. It was a Greek colony in Italy, Tarentum was. She loved her library more than anything. The keywords here are knowledge, informed judgment, intellect, and rationality. So we have all of these scrolls here. And we see, I wondered if this, there's like a statuary out with it's also holding a book out in the garden, which is really gorgeous. As well. And this does tie a little bit in with Hecate. Her patron deity was Hecate, nocturnal goddess of witchcraft and magic, which we do get as part of the deck. Next up, we have the beautiful Stargazer. I love the darkness of here in the sky shining through the archway, these sort of astrological things that we have going on here. Her keywords are research, patience, dedication, and confidence. This is Cyania, or Cyan. I think of that as Cyania, but could be wrong. Born in Palmyra in the 4th century, at the time when the city was under the rule of Rome, as obviously many of these cities were. My understanding is this is kind of where modern day Syria is. And it did list it as a Semitic city. I thought that was interesting. It talks a lot about her working with an astrologer and an astronomer, I should say, in Antioch. So really beautiful. This was one of the cards that made this move to the top of my list. This literally gives me goosebumps. This is the Veilwalker, and her name is Ulfrun's Sigurd's daughter, a Norse seeress, but this is somebody who was born in Aarhus, Aarhus, which is Swedish, although it talks about Aarhus being in Denmark, but that, obviously we're not talking about at a time in which there was officially a Sweden necessarily. So this was in the 9th century, during what is commonly known as the Viking Age. She was born in Aarhus and spent most of her life in the vicinity of Uppsala, one of the main centers of pagan worship in Sweden. But she has if you notice, she has a very, in my opinion, again, this one gives me goosebumps. This is why I wanted this deck. She has a very stern look on her face. She has a raven or a crow on her shoulder. She has, this might say on here. She has the kind of feathery cloak. So I have a ancestral guardian, which in the northern traditions were often females, And although sometimes it was females for the males, and then women or girls would have a male, it's a ancestral guardian, something that goes through the line, as a guardian through the line. And it's one of my in my own personal ancestral practice. It is one of she's the most, and throughout my life, been the most vocal. And so I have a very active working with this particular ancestral energy, and this is the best depiction that I could get of her. Although I don't necessarily see her with white hair, but the crow is there, the sternness, and the, not in a negative sternness, but she's not somebody to be messed with, and that's definitely that energy. And so when I saw this, like, this is exactly what she might have looked like, who knows, but it represents how I feel in that connection. And so, and it's also in that area where most of my genetic ancestry comes from. And so that was really exciting to me. Anyways, I know that was a rabbit trail, but the Veilwalker has the keywords of crossing, transition, courage, and evolution. And I like that, of course, we have this coldness and this winter and this clarity that's there with the Veilwalker, because she represents the crone in the beginning of her transition. She is unafraid of the darkness of winter and of the quietness it brings, because deep in the frosty soil, she feels life flowing in the dormant roots. Super powerful. Love it. There's a couple other cards, but that's the big one for me. So this next wise woman is the guardian, protection, leader, warden, and sanctuary. This is Ruda, and she lived in the 13th century among the Samogitian tribes of Lithuania. I think we had looked at this. And she faced and survived an actual battle that did take place in true in history in this area, where defeated in an event that inspired rebellion in the neighboring tribes against Catholic oppression. And so here we have the guardian. I love this Wayfarer. This is like a strong, it made me think of like the Canterbury Tales, because this is what she is, the Wayfarer. She is the one that is going out on the journey, on the pilgrimage. And this is medieval Europe, so this would have been the time of like the Canterbury Tales. And she often disguised herself as a pilgrim. So this would have been across Europe in the middle or medieval time. Curiosity, open-mindedness, hospitality, and movement. But I really love this because, again, she is a pilgrim in her own way, but she isn't necessarily a pilgrim in terms of the Christian pilgrimages, but she utilized those as a way to move at a time when it's, wouldn't have been easy for a woman to be traveling and moving about. So quite love her. I don't know if you see this, but one of her eyes is blind, although I'm assuming one of her eyes is actually seeing more than the other eye, which is quite powerful. We see this in a couple of the cards. I don't think I pointed it out, but like that one, I don't think, until that one, I don't think we've seen that again. Obviously, we see that in Hecate as well. But you can see as we're progressing through time as well as across different places. This is the mystic, contemplation, ecstasy, intimacy, and communion. This is Murad in the 15th century, and spent most of her life in the west of France. She does connect her as a family connection back to Melusine, which is a shape-shifting. You'll see this talked about in folklore. It's a half snake and a half woman connection, and you can see. I was gonna point at the screen. You can see the snake on her shoulder there as well, which I quite love. Here we have the artist. And this is creativity, expression, inspiration, and unorthodoxy. This is a Lucretia, and she was born in the 16th century in the Dutch city of Breda, and then moved south of the Alps to partake in the rapidly blossoming art scene of the Italian Renaissance. Now, what I love is that it doesn't talk about this in her this guidebook, but look, she has a pendulum in her hand. So while obviously this is more of an artist person, her art is being used for the purpose of divination, which is really beautiful. I love this one too. This is interesting to me because it reminds me of the older lady. If you've watched Discovery of Witches, or if you've read the books are better than I'm so sad to say this because I love the books a lot, but I do not like the chemistry between the two main characters in the series at all. Like, I don't feel like there's any real chemistry between these two people, and in the books there's an intense chemistry. So, but I still watch it because I love the story. But when she does get into England, and she is being taught by, and actually, was she in Scotland? There were things going on in Scotland at the time in that scene, but I think she was in England at the time. But this looks like one of the ladies that was helping her to utilize her powers. But this is Rozelle, but she was actually born in Ireland and moved to Scotland. I have a grandmother who was born in Scotland, moved to Ireland, and then married, and then they came to the United States in the in the late 1800s and going into the early 1900s. So this is seen in 16th century rural Ireland, and moved to Scotland with her family as a child after surviving a life-threatening sickness. The disease left her with the gift of second sight, which does happen, and allowed her to see the Fae folk, befriend them, and experience visions. So visions, second sight, other world, and seeing the hidden is what she's all about. Look at her. Again, no nonsense looking woman, which I love. All of these women actually don't look like you should be messing with them, which I think is wonderful. Next, we have the Alchemist. I love alchemy cards. I just love the whole mythos around alchemy, as well as that tinkering with the herbs and the potions and the things of that nature is, to me, very part of my passion. And so I love to have an alchemy card. This is Hertha. And she was born in, she was in Leipzig. And then in Prague, she started a new life under a new identity of Herwig, an alchemist employed by the court of Rudolph II before the plague took her life in 1599. And so this moves from Saxon Germany to Prague in what would be the Czech Republic area. Here. So her keywords are alchemy, inner mechanisms, elements, and interconnection. I just love that, finding the interconnection. This is such a powerful one. Again, this is called the memory, and this is interesting because this is the only witch in this deck who is not a work of fiction. Now, you would think, obviously, given this image, that this would most definitely be a work of fiction. But Catherine Repond, R-E-P-O-N-D, known as Catalin, is the only witch in this deck who is not a work of fiction. She was flesh and blood like you and me. She was born in Switzerland in 1663. She was accused of witchcraft by the local authorities, then tortured and executed in Freiburg in 1731. And so her keywords are vestige, remembrance, echo, and legacy. And again, I have a great whatever number of aunts who was killed and was hung as a witch. And so that is very powerful to me, again, in an ancestral way, as well as it should be a powerful thing in general. But as she writes here, her visage appears briefly in the darkness and vanishes in thick curls of smoke. Her voice drifts between cries and sobs. Every word pains her greatly, yet she does not keep silent. Her story needs to be told. And quite powerful there. The next one that we have is the Shaman, and this is self-analysis, vulnerability, introspection, and the bare self. This is Diana, not spelled like Diana, but Diana, a Yakut shaman who lived near the upper course of the river Anabar in the 18th century. This would be around in Russian area, my understanding is. Although I did look some things up about this belief system, or these people with the belief system of this Yakut, Yakut. These were semi-stationary, so I guess you could also say semi-nomadic people in Siberia. And they had some really interesting connections to the idea of, you know, the northern traditions of the three worlds, and the three levels, you know, the upper world, the lower world, and the middle world, as well as, you know, there's the 9 worlds that we see in northern traditions. They had in the upper world 9 skies, so that connection to the number 9. The upper world, then the middle world where humans and other spirits lived, and then into the lower world where it's more of the world of death and the more of that underworld kind of feel to it. I didn't look a lot into it, but it's something I am definitely going to be reading some more on because it was quite interesting. I've never heard of them before. Her spirit was taken by the animals of the forest, and she was instructed in the secret knowledge of healing and traveling between worlds. And the description of her transformation is not an easy one at all, and quite interesting, and even again just in this little bit here. So here we have a shaman card. Next we have the beautiful Reconciler. I do love a couple of these cards. I think we've only had 2 where they go into that's in the darkness, but when they go into the night sky, because there is a lot of beautiful bright light. Her use of light is really gorgeous in my opinion. So that when we go into the dark spaces, it does feel quite intense and powerful. And here is the Reconciler. Aurelia Anahi Ramalho, who I am slaughtered that to death, lived in Brazil at the turn of the 18th century. In Sao Paulo, she witnessed the execution of her friend, Maria, which is an actual person, Maria de... I'm just going to show it to you. I'm slaughtering it. But she was somebody who was accused and burned of witchcraft in 1798. She was a real person, but this particular person is a construct of that time period in Brazil. Diplomacy, silver linings, acceptance, and improvements for the reconciliar. For the Reconciler. She represents the ability to accept what we cannot change and focus our energies on achievable steps. Like dripping water hollowing out a stone, patience and a sense of direction move us closer to our goals. I love this look. It looks like she's literally capturing the energy of the moon, or she's releasing it up into the air as well. It's really gorgeous. Here we have the Storyteller. I love to have a Storyteller card in general. I love the reindeer here. This is obviously us representing a Sami woman who lived in the northern part of what would have been considered old Sweden. She was one of the rare Noidi or Sami shamans. She left after the intense Christianization of the Scandinavian lands. Her life followed the seasonal movements of reindeer, an essential element of the Sami community. Her keywords are roots, storytelling, communication, and sharing. Of course, again, this is really powerful for me, as most of my genetic, or the majority of my genetic ancestry is Scandinavian. And so I love those, being able to touch into those roots. I mean, every card, it's like, I just love all of these cards. And especially, again, as having taken this journey online through all of these different areas, has just made this deck give me those kinds of feels where I can vibrationally feel these cards in my chest. Like, there's absolutely no reason right now for me to be teary, but I have feeling under my chest, and my eyes feel that tingly, burny bit of like I could cry for absolutely no reason when I see, like, when this card came up. There's no reason why this card should be making me emotional, but I have such a strong reaction to it. Oh, I am getting over being sick, but so this is North America. What I do really like is that it wasn't just put as Native American. It was a very specific Lakota tribe. So, you know, she specifies the tribe, because there are multiple different tribes, or there certainly were and continue to be multiple tribes across the United States, and they are not a homogenous whole. They are, you know, separate tribes and separate stories and separate beliefs, even though some of them might cross over and interchange. So I really appreciate that. This would have been in the Black Hills in the 19th century. She was a Lakota Winyan Wakan, I'm sure I'm slaughtering that as well, a healer who spent her life helping her community by assisting the sick and the ailing. On the last night spent on the sacred hill, she heard the cry of a bear cub. It sounded lost, afraid. She couldn't help it, and her soul ached. In her heart, she knew that what she was hearing was the cry of her tribe, a premonition of the wounds to come. Skilled at identifying the roots of a problem, the healer uses this ability to take necessary steps towards betterment. Sometimes this results in restoration to a previous status. Other times it's a change in the situation altogether. So the keywords are restoration, diagnosis, remedy, and solace. Of course, wolf is very important to me, and so it's just, yeah, all kinds of feels. And this is obviously an ancestor of land for me, which I do think is an important part of our ancestry, especially if you are displaced. If you're in a country that is an immigrant country, like, say, Australia, United States, many different places, because we're all immigrants, truthfully, to where we stand. But it's important to honor the ancestors of the land that we're on, as well as the ancestors of where our people came from. And so that is quite powerful, part of my practice, and so that's a powerful card. Okay. The next card we have is the Laborer. This is Vesna, and she was born in the rural highlands of Bosnia in the second half of the 19th century. She was denied a formal education despite her interest, and spent her life learning from nature instead. The symbols tattooed on her hands and arms identify her as an expert in traditional healing and herbal remedies. So, again, we see the sickle there: endeavor, resourcefulness, perseverance, and reliability. She just got on with the business, and if they weren't going to teach her formally, she was going to learn, and probably, let's be honest, a better place to learn. But this is obviously a card of work as well, hard work and resourcefulness. Next, we have the Explorer. I quite love her. Again, we have a crow on her shoulder. This is Irini, Airini Hort, and she was born in Wellington, which is New Zealand. I had to look that one up because it didn't say where that was. What I like is that we're starting to see, as we go into some modern spaces, we're seeing where there are blendings, because most countries are not actually, 100% anything. When you start looking at ancestry and colonization and immigration and all the things that are going on, most people today are not 100% anything. They're a mix of different cultures, and that can cause there to be issues. And in this case, this explorer is a mix. She was born in Wellington, which is New Zealand, from a Jewish Englishman and a Christian housewife of Maori descent. She found her place in the cradle of those communities. Let's backtrack. She never found her place in the cradle of those communities and spent her life traveling instead. Her explorations took her to the wildest corners of the world, which fostered within her the sense of not belonging to one place, but as a world as a whole. There's many people, I think, who experience this, being standing at a crossroads between different cultures and never really feeling comfortable in any one particular one. So I really like that there is a card that kind of represents that movement. Wanderlust, identity, self-discovery, and voyage. I mean, if you can look at this card and not smile, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the day that you're having. She just makes me smile with the fox that we have there. This is Hotaru Hayashi, was born in the late 19th century on the island of Hokkaido from a Japanese father and an Anu mother. And this is so funny. Again, synchronicities. I like to watch, there's one person's channel that I like to watch who is a genealogist, but he likes to watch people's who are, finding out they put in their DNA for ancestry information, and they're like revealing what their ancestral makeup is, their ethnic makeup is, and he likes to kind of watch those and review them and talk about them from a genealogist point of view. And so I had been watching one of his videos, and the young man who's was doing the ancestry review was half Japanese, and I can't remember the other half, but it was like English or something like that. And what was interesting is that this island, which I hadn't really heard of. I mean, I'm sure I've heard of it at some point, but I'd not. It never was something that connected. I didn't know it. And it was talking about this island and talking about the Anu people, and I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, Ainu. So I had just watched something and and then kind of Googled it just to see about it before getting this deck, just in the last couple of days. And so it's just kind of interesting. She was orphaned at a young age and shunned by her community, so she retreated to a nearby mountains, built herself a hut, and lived the life of a hermit. Despite this, she knew no loneliness, having found the company of animals, serenity, self-sufficiency, peace of mind, and contentment with this wise woman. Here we have the soothsayer. This is Arthemy. I'm sure this is probably French style word here. She was born not far from New Orleans at the end of the 19th century. She worked in music and theater before undertaking a job as a nurse. She was a skilled practitioner of voodoo for most of her life and a firm believer that nature does not distinguish between good and evil, for those exist only in the actions of people. So this would have obviously been in North America, in the state of Louisiana. So we can see her kind of out, and it kind of has a bayou kind of feel in the back, the beautiful heron in her hair, but also behind her there. So next we have the weaver. This is Sophia Diana, born at the beginning of the 20th century on the Sardinian coast. I looked that up. That is a large island in the Mediterranean Sea. She made her living as a weaver and specialized in the working of byssus, a rare and precious type of sea silk forged in small quantities from noble pen shells, a craft which she had learned from her grandmother. And her keywords are aspirations, dreams, desires, weaving, fate. I do love to have a weaver card. Obviously she is on the shore here. It would have been nice to have maybe a spindle or whatever this the way in which this was maybe harvested, but this is where it would have obviously been a harvest. So, because she would have to go to the shells. So, I do again love having a Weaver card in this type of a deck. I think is so important. Next, we have the Preserver. This is Minerva. And I am not going to slaughter her last name. She lived in Poland in the 20th century. She was a museum intern when Warsaw was bombed in 1938, obviously an actual occurrence. Together with director Lorenz and a few colleagues, she stayed in the city, helping to secure a large number of artifacts that would have otherwise been destroyed by the Nazi ransacking. Safeguarding, responsibility, conservation, and precision in preserving things. So that is quite gorgeous. I like the magpie. I think that would be a magpie on her shoulder, kind of collecting things for the sake of preserving them. Absolutely gorgeous. Like, what is this? Is that a playful animals? But what is this? What is that up in the tree with her? I want to say a seal, but it can't be a seal. Is that like a giant beaver? I would like to know. This is called the Unbound. This is Rimaq, Rimaq, Lobita, born in Ecuador. And so this would have been South America. She was a shaman and called the Amazonian forest her own. She had a deep knowledge of the use of plants, sacred plants, and had mastered the ability of traveling between the worlds. She is unbound. She dreams of green depths of the river and of the cosmic anaconda swimming smoothly in its current. As she dives in to join her, she realizes her body is that of an otter. Okay, I'm guessing that's a large otter then. This playful animal lives between land and water, just as a shaman lives between the human world and that of spirits. Okay, that's a large otter. Maybe otters are much larger than I think they are. I love otters, but I guess I've just not seen one perched up in a tree like that, and it kind of threw me off. There we go. It's an otter. And I love it. Kind of has a Selkie vibe right to it, but with her and the otter. Here we have the companion, friendship, trust, empathy, and closeness. She is Kadiatu Ba, was born in 1940 west of Yaoundé. Not sure there, in Africa. From an early age, she displayed signs of familiarity with the invisible world and a closeness to the spirits of the wildwood that inhabited the forest surrounding in her village. She was referred to as an old child. The members of her community both feared and respected her and would often come to her for advice. That when we see certain people and children and we say that they have an old soul, I suppose that would be similar. Next, we have the Comforter, Nest, Comfort, Simplicity, and Safety. This is Robin Lim, and she spent most of her life in a little farm in the Great Smoky Mountains, where she familiarized herself with the Appalachian, depending on if you're in the north or the south, with Appalachian folk magic, which is something I've been doing a lot of research and studying on. And so I was really excited to see, I didn't know this card was here, and I was really excited to see this here. This, of course, would be North America and the Appalachian Mountains. There are some people who would say Appalachian is the only way to say it. If you say Appalachian, you're incorrect. But it does have to do with whether those mountains span the north and the south of the east coast of North America. And in the north, where I had family in the Appalachian Mountains, and in the south, where I had family move through, and a little at the base of the Appalachian Mountains would be correct. So anyways, I was excited to see this here because again, that's just something that I have been studying as well in an ancestral genealogical studying way, but also in the folk magic way. So I loved seeing that. Here we have the Dusk Child. This is a very powerful image to me. This is Kaya, Chaya, born in Indonesia, but spent most of her life traveling from one place to another. This Indonesia would be in Southeast Asia. She is the Dusk Child, but look at that amazing skull lyre, kind of like the lyre. And again, most of these people have just amazing tattoos, and I love the details of it. There's something about this, you know, she's sitting at the base of a large tree. This card in particular, and I think that the name, the Dusk Child, it just gave me kind of like her. It just kind of gave me those not heebie-jeebies, because that wasn't a negative reaction, but just that goosebumps kind of feel. She walks through the ancient cemetery with slow and mindful steps. The gravestones stand humbly upon the imposing yew trees, many of them swallowed by ivy. As dusk starts falling, the silhouettes of blackbirds make way for those of bats. And then the last one of this first part of the deck is Hecate. Now, this is not a wise woman. Well, I mean, she's a wise woman, but this isn't meant to be a particular a wise woman at a particular time or place, right? This is Hecate, who stands at the crossroads of all the places, right? So the keywords here are key, changes, directions, and path. She, of course, and she does go in to explain that Hecate was a deity worshipped mainly in Greece, Asia Minor, and southern Italy. She is multifaceted and complex goddess who, in the words of Hesiod, holds privilege in both earth, heaven, and sea. So she also, if you look at the, you know, there's the three world worldview, which is very much my worldview. She has privilege in all of the world. She is the crosser of boundaries, and she stands at the crossroads. Very powerful. And that card is just, the image of this is so beautiful. I love the key at her around her neck, her staff with the candle in the shell. You get that hint of the sea there, even though this isn't an image of the sea. And yeah, so powerful of an image. This is definitely an image that was like, whoa, okay, hello you, I see this deck. So those are the 30 cards that represents the voices of this deck. And then the next cards that we're going to look at are the whispers. Really beautiful. I can't wait to shuffle this deck. Well, I can shuffle this one because I'm going to try these at first, separating the decks out. Yeah, they shuffle. Do you hear that shush? Because it's a very, it's a very textured, I want to say linen. I'm going to put it up here close enough. Yeah, I think it's a linen, but it's a very textured. Oops, my camera's like, what are you doing? It's a very textured linen. So when you do bridge it, you get a nice shushing sound to it that I quite love. And you get that when you overhand. I really like the feel, the feeling and the sounds of this cardstock. Really gorgeous. Really gorgeous. Okay, so that is the first half. This is kind of like the major arcana, and now we're going to kind of go through the minor arcana in a quicker way. These are, let's see how she describes these. The role of the whisper cards is to complement and clarify the voice cards by providing additional meaning, acting as a subordinate clause to a main clause. More of that energy of as a quicker style of reading, more like pulling some oracle to be able to then get the what is this particular voice whispering to you, which is really cool. So here we have the familiar with the keyword. So all we have in the guidebook is the image, the title, and then keywords. Generally, I think they're all about 3 keywords. So the familiar is help, bond, and advice. The sprout is gorgeous. My mom, we had a tree that was a beloved tree on the driveway of the house where I spent 12 years. I was 12 until I married and went out of the house, but my mom and dad still live there. There's a tree there that I've taken so many pictures next to, of so many people, graduation pictures, engagement pictures, family pictures, and I just spent a lot of time. It's one of those tree friends, and I was really sad. It had fallen over, was clearly had been completely rotted inside. It didn't even look, it had rotted out inside. It had died and had rotted out, and then in a storm it had fallen over. And it was so sad when my mom had taken a picture. It was so sad. But immediately after, it started growing all of these amazing mushrooms that look, or fungus or mushroom. I don't think they're mushrooms, they're probably fungus, that was growing immediately inside, just filling up this hollowed out tree. And my mom started, she was taking pictures and putting them up and wanted me to come out and take some pictures, which I did. And it's just been really interesting because it was really sad when that tree fell over, but at the same time, my mom and I have so enjoyed just seeing it like come to life in a very different way. So this card reminds me of that, obviously. Rebirth, cycle, and continuity. Here we have pruning. I love a scissors card or a cutting card, right? That is very useful in divination decks. And so pruning away in order to make the whole better, right? What do you need to cut away or release so that the rest can be more healthy and continue to grow? Here we have light. Oh, I didn't even give, this is unnecessity. I love that word. I'm not sure that is a word. Unnecessary. But I like the word because I'm all for making up words. It probably is a word. I'm just saying it feels like it's not a word that I love. Redirection and strengthening. We have the light for guidance, hope, and clarity. I love the firefly look in the lantern. Beautiful standing stone here. Endurance, permanence, and timelessness. Really gorgeous. We have the thaw. We also have what looks like a chrysalis, like a moth. You can just see where they're gonna be able to open up, and when it thaws, and spring fully comes in, that's gonna open up and be something new. Potential, eagerness, and anticipation. Here we have the distaff. Authority, influence, and expertise. We can see that spinning motion there. We have the sickle, which we see in a lot of the waistbands of the wise women here, and as kind of horn handle. Harvest, results, and reward. Here we have a staff. I love that it's carrying the gourd here. I'm guessing, I haven't gone through, but so far, I know some of these we have seen, like we've certainly seen this owl. I don't know about that one. I don't know about the pruning scissors, but it wouldn't surprise me. But some of these, we have seen some standing stones. We have seen sickles. We have seen the staff, I believe. And so I'm wondering if all of these things aren't found somewhere in this deck as I get to know the images more. We do have scissors in the background here. And so it would be interesting to know. There's the owl that we saw. But I feel, yep, there's the staff. This is a straighter staff with the gourd on it, though, from the Wayfarer. So my guess is there's a standing stone, and I think I saw some standing stones in the background as well, of other cards. So it's just kind of interesting to see if a lot of those things are found in the voice cards as well as the whisper cards. Adventure, farseeing, and expansion. Here we have the rest card for repose, self-care, and regeneration. The temperance card for medicine, poison, and measure, because it can be poisonous, it can be medicine, it can be both, right? Many plants are both poisonous and medicinal at the same time. And here we have the cornucopia for abundance, worth, and possessions. I mean, the art is just gorgeous. Mountain here for obstacle, challenge, or a hindrance, like we would see in a Lenormand deck. The bee for activity, solidarity, and community. We definitely saw a bee. The Storm, we saw some talk at least about storm cards. Hardship, Unclear Vision, and Confusion. We have Offering with a little wren. I love the little tiny brown birds, little sparrows, little wrens, things like that are my favorite. Love, Caring, and Kindness. We have these beautiful ruins. I love this image of the runes. Past, the traces of the past, and old wounds. So this could be not always, this could be positive, and this could be shadow. All of these could be both. I'm tempted to utilize this deck with reversals. Just to give it a try. Here we have the Hare, Luck, Vigilance, and Alertness. Some of my favorite books that we have utilized in some of my Tales from the Woods classes, I feel are represented here. Definitely Korag, which is a book by Susan Fletcher. Also, you can look it up under Highland Witch. We definitely see that especially in the memory card. The Hare in Watership Down. Just some of these, it just ties in a lot of deep dives into books that we've done. That I love to see those little hints there. We have the Goat for strength, stability, and dignity. We have the Shell, which again, we know that there were the silk threads being carried from the shells. Protection, insecurity, and imprisonment. It can go both ways. Here we have the Pomegranate of craving, passion, and senses. We have the Roots card here with grounding, wisdom, and nourishment. I always love to have a Roots card. We have a Wreath, which is really beautiful for celebration, joy, and a kind of a carefree moment. So beautiful. Here we have the Briar. Caution, danger, but also boundaries and also protection. Think about algae as being a rune that can be about putting up the brambles and the briars as a protective measure as well. So it can go both ways. Autumn, I'm sorry. Why not have an autumn card? Melancholy, decay, and inevitability. I would see it as decay, as a dropping away. I wouldn't read it as melancholy. But I'm an autumn. I'm a in Korag or the Highland Witch. She talks about being weather-born, and the weather or the season and the weather that you're born in has an indication where your power is at. And I am autumn-born, so having an autumn in here. I don't think all of the seasons are here, which would be great, but for me, sorry to you springborns or winterborns, but for autumn-born me, I love having that there. Here we have a Cauldron, new ideas, transmutation, and creation. I really love this look of this cauldron because this looks like a working cauldron. You know, cauldrons just came out of the pots that women cooked in, and they made medicine in, and they probably did some magic in as well. Everything happened in the one pot. It wasn't separated out. And it's just a good iron kettle, and that is what I love about this card. And I just like cauldron cards in decks. You can shuffle, find the cauldron and see what's on either side to see what energies you might need to mix for a situation. I really like utilizing cauldron cards like that. Also ties in with the 3 cauldrons, which is an obsession of mine. You know, we won't ramble. We have the Oath, decision, bravery, and affirmation. Here, just making an oath and the cutting of the hair, which is really powerful, or even the knife to, take a blood oath. Really powerful. Here we have the Mirror for reflection, inner self, and surface. This could be used as a scrying card, but it's also about what's being reflected back and really seeing what's going on the inside. Here we have Teeth card. Pain, conflict, and aggression. And a lot of times I was talking about that. It's right here just because I was doing it. But I had was talking about the Conjure cards by Jake Riches, and there's a card in there that is associated with teeth. And a lot of people have nightmares of teeth falling out, and that's certainly one of mine. And so it always gives me a bit of a cringe, but I love this kind of biting, because we have the scissors, which is more purposeful snipping, but the teeth is definitely more of a biting and a grinding kind of energy to it. And then we have this beautiful moon card for the unconscious, imagination, and fantasy here. So absolutely stunning. Again, I think as an artist, she's just amazing at her craft. And you can really see, you know, this very detailed sort of portraiture work with really an intense amount of details in the tattoos, and, you know, just absolutely just gorgeous work. I mean, then you have these more simple images that are just as beautiful and gorgeous, and the whiteness of this standing out from the dark green bordered of the majors. Basically, this is, you're basically getting a majors and a minors, and you can obviously mix them in or leave them separate depending on. I'll be interested for those, because I know I'm late to this bandwagon, because and there's a lot of people who have this deck and have used it. I would love to know in the comments, do you use it mixed together or do you keep them separate? My inclination is to try both. But yeah, so let's just, my thought would be, right? My thought would be that you would shuffle these. You know what, I'm going to pause here for a minute. This is a really important deck for me, and I really want to do my first draw as an actual draw for myself, because I haven't drawn from this deck. So I'm going to pause and I will be right back. So I pulled my first, because I wanted to get an actual message and kind of lean into the reading. I pulled the Comforter, which was from the Appalachian Mountains. And so let's just read her message here. I've already kind of set with this message myself. I wanted to show you, this is a good time to show you this. In the back of the book is an index, which is really nice here, right? So that you can kind of skim and find your comforter. I think it would have been best here to have alphabetized this, but it's all on one page. It's pretty easy to then skim it, because these are not in alphabetical order in the book. They're moving through time. But I find this to be really easy. Find it, then you can go to your 6. So if you're not going to have it alphabetical or numbered in some way, having an easy way for people to find it is important, and I think she's done a good job here. So the keywords are nest, comfort, simplicity, and safety. Her home was filled with joyful sounds, the shelling of walnuts, the idle strumming of the dulcimer, the rumblings of the pot on the stove, and the barkings of the dogs. And when there were silences, they were comfortable silences that one did not feel the need to fill. The Comforter speaks of the need for a home, material or not, and of choosing the right elements of building our nest. Finding warmth in little things and wholeness in simplicity is sometimes all we need. She represents our safe spaces in which we can find repose. And so finding in that and creating that safe space for self over the next couple months, which are difficult months for me. We won't go into that over and over again, but they're difficult months for me in November and December. And so making that safe and secure space is going to be important to me to persevere and endure through difficult, painful times, and be able to come and gain something from that. The pomegranate is such a powerful symbol, I think, of insight and magic and dipping into the underworld, right? But in this deck, let's just look and see. 86, I think, was like passions, senses, cravings, but I kind of take pomegranates and go a little bit more. We see the pomegranates in the High Priestess. We certainly see the pomegranates in the Persephone cycle and myth, and so some of those diving deep kind of things, but having a safe and secure space to root and ground in is what is going to allow to be able to manage those things in a way in which then we gain something from that situation. So that was a powerful first pull. I wanted to say, I was going to try to turn it off here. 1 second. I wanted to get a picture of that before I picked it up. But while I was shuffling and doing this, I was thinking some other ways that would be really great to use this is you could pull directly for who you needed to hear from. So you could go through here purposefully, not just randomly, and pull the card that you felt like you needed to help with, and then pull a whisper or a message from them. The other thing that you could do is she talks about the Council of Three, but even outside of those specific meanings, you could shuffle, right? So shuffle for a particular card. So in this case, I'm going to shuffle for the Veil Seeker, right? Or the Veil, I just think of her now as my ancestral guardian, but I could shuffle for a message from her. Obviously, I have a long line of ancestral energy, so then I could go in and find the card that you're shuffling for. Right here, the Veilwalker. And then pull the rest of the council as she brings her sisters in to have a message for me from the Stargazer and the Weaver, right? So do that as a powerful council. I think I'm out of the, sorry. Wasn't watching the screen. And then pull 3 cards. And again, I am really thinking on this one. Let's just go ahead and do it. Of doing the second half with reversals for a little while, because that does take, a 30 card deck and provide some shifting, and it kind of expands the ability for that to step out. I also have a deck that I made in conjunction with that class where we read Korag or the Highland Witch, and that was a it started as a smaller deck. It's not a smaller deck anymore. But, and then getting a message then. So you have that, again, sort of major arcana message, and then you have that underneath it message. I think in the guidebook she talks about pulling your 3 council, and if one of those you wanted to get more of a message from that person because you needed to dig deeper on whatever message that was, then using these cards to dig deeper that way. I will also, again, see myself, so this became quite large, but it started out as a 36 card deck, I think, that is really a important deck for me and speaks there's Korag there. And so this is a really, I use this deck for myself a lot. I could see myself using this in conjunction with these majors as well, as I think the vibe of it, the energy of this deck comes from the same place that the voices of this deck come from. And so I really see this being a deck that I also utilize in ways as well with that. So again, think about the ways, and then I'm sure there are people that mix it all in together. I'm not going to do that yet because I do see a good reason to keep them separate. It makes me more inclined to maybe leave this one without coloring the edges, because then it's going to be very clear when they're stacked which ones are, this is separation there. And this is so white that I'm a little bit hesitant to put the dark edge that I would want to put because of this. Now, what I could do, I kind of like that idea, because of the backing, is I could do this one with the dark green, and then I'm still kind of, let's see. No, I would definitely say this. And then use my typical gold that I like to use. It makes a matte gold, this 026. Let me make sure it's this one. I have several golds, but the one that I like to use, I have multiple. Yeah, the 026. Yes, I can look at that and do that on the lighter ones. Bam. I'm going to go do that actually, and then I will come back and show it to you before I wrap this up. Okay. I really love how this turned out. So the green was perfect. This is the, look at that. I probably need to do maybe one more coat of it, although I don't know. I may just touch it up because it's perfect. Like it looks, it's the perfect color. This is Tombow 249. A lot of people ask me about using Tombow because Tombow is a watercolor. It's water soluble. I don't have sweaty hands. I don't let my cards get wet. So I've never had a problem with it. Yes, you can see it's on my hand right now from doing it, but this will wash right off. And once it dries, I don't have an issue with Tombow bleeding afterwards. That's just me. Everybody's different. I always say, like, if you're not sure for yourself, get a cheap deck of playing cards, edge it in the marker that you want to use, and do some shuffling and stuff with that, and make sure that that's going to work for you before you do an expensive deck. I use Tombows all the time for my edging. They've held up really well. They don't bleed after they dry for me. I just have had no issues with them, so I really actually like using them. And but everybody has to kind of figure that out for themselves before they use, do something on a really nice deck. So this is one of my go-tos. This again is 026 Tombow. I think when I ask too much. And sometimes I've got other things running on my computer too, and that might be causing the issue. But anyway, this is 026. Anytime I want which is most of the time, I really like a matte gold finish for a lot of decks. I've used this on many different decks. So, and I think it turned out really good. It gives sort of an aged, antiqued gold look. This is definitely a little bit brighter. I could have gone maybe with more like a like this brighter 993, but I really like this look, and so I'm happy with it. I'm really happy with how that looks. And now when they're stacked, I can easily tell where the voices end and the whispers start. So but if you wanted a brighter one, right, if you wanted more of a yellow gold, I would say this 993 would be a good sample of that. But I just really like this antiqued matte gold, and that looks fantastic. So I wanted to show you that real quick as I had finished it before I wrapped up the video. And of course, you could also if you don't want to edge your decks, you could also stick them face to face like this in the box. A lot of times with some decks that use a different depending on the card stock, when you take a deck that is cut this way and you flip it, you'll get kind of a weird clickiness to it. Because there's a slight bow to the deck, and you can definitely see that with this deck there. But so my intentions is not to do that. And if I did, I'll go ahead and shuffle this because it'd be easy to pull it apart. But if you were going to mix your deck, I think the gold and the green will look. I love the way this shuffles. I like the look of the gold and the green shuffled as well. So there you have it. That is, hopefully you've enjoyed this look at the Compendium of Witches Oracle. Thank you to She Who Knows Who She Is for surprising me with this. It was a lovely surprise, and it's as I feel as good about this deck as I expected that I was going to feel about it. I'm really excited to have a chance to work with this deck. I foresee this as being a deck that I use a lot. It just has that. Again, I've read through the guidebook. I have taken the journey on Google to all the different places, and just by the end of doing this, edging it, when you take the time to edge it, you're looking at every single card, turning it around in all directions as you're edging it, one by one. It's a really powerful way of getting to know a deck. And I just feel very, very connected with this deck and excited to see how it ends up reading and working with it over time. At the end of the year, I always like to do a recap of all of the decks that I've done walkthroughs of and see how did they play out after using them. So this will also be in there, although it will only have been a couple months by then, but still, you should get a recap of that as we go. But I'm excited about it. I was going to say, I know somebody's going to ask, would you trim this? No. And the reason is that I really like the dark green borders, and I would not do anything to mess up that back. Sometimes I'm willing to do it, but in this case, no. This is not a deck that I would trim. It would also be not impossible, but difficult to trim the other form to be centered just right and the same size. Doable, but it would definitely be a lot of work factoring it in. Again, I just like the way this looks, and I have a zero intention of trimming this deck. But if somebody has, I would love to see their work on it, because I think that it would look beautiful being fully borderless. But I think it looks almost like we're looking in a snapshot of these wise women in different times and different places, and getting that snapshot image there. And I think it works really beautifully. So no, I don't intend to trim it. Okay, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. It has been a joy to walk through this with you all.